Okay, so I'm not talking about investing in my company or investing in any particular company. What I'm talking about is opening up the opportunities that are available in Australia in investing in manufacturing. So, investing in manufacturing in Australia, I've been chairman of the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre, which was originally set up by government many years ago. I think we've had 10 ministers, and that's now been transferred to industry ownership. So it's now independent of government. And I'm also chair of Horizon 2 Capital Partners, and that is a company where we're raising money and investing specifically in advanced manufacturing in Australia. So Jade introduced us as the manufacturing sector. Sorry, Jade, I'm going to blow that myth straight open. So manufacturing is not a sector. Manufacturing is a capability. So that means it operates across sectors. So in defence, in medical, in production, in food, manufacturing cuts across. It's a horizontal across all of those sectors, but it's a capability across those. So that's the first bit of myth busting. The second myth busting is advanced manufacturing is not what you make, it's how you make it. So there's a company we invested in that makes bicycle frames. It makes bicycles, but they're carbon fibre bicycles and they're 3D printed. And the top bicycle they sell is $48,000. And they're used by elite athletes around the world. If you want to buy one now, it takes you 22 months to get one. So that's done in Australia. It's not what you make, it's how you make it. So the wheel has been around a long time, but this is advanced manufacturing in bicycles. Now the other myth I want to break is that manufacturing is production. When people talk about or think about manufacturing, they think about a smoky, blokey warehouse that's bolting things together and pushing it out the door. Manufacturing is not just production. Manufacturing has 7 phases to it, and those 7 phases, this comes from a study by Stan Shih in 2010, and the 7 phases of manufacturing is R&D. We're seeing a lot of R&D in the rooms around us here, and people who are coming up talking about the research and development they've done in order to manufacture. First stage R&D, second stage design. The third stage is logistics. That's getting the products, the components to a factory. Then you've got that little bit in the middle, production, which actually happens to be the lowest value add in the production chain. Next is delivery. You've got to get the product to the stores. You've got sales. Then you've got servitization. How do you make money post a sale? The servitization aspect, either through data capture and exploitation of data or through the service side of the product. Think of an Apple iPhone. Everyone says, okay, well, Apple makes the iPhone. Apple doesn't actually produce the iPhone. So the iPhone is successful because of the research and development, the slick design, and then being able to produce the iPhone, and they use Foxconn to produce the iPhone. And it's only, of all of the value chain of the iPhone, only 5% is production. So the value in manufacturing is right across those 7 elements. And again, think of the iPhone, where's the majority of value that Apple gets? It's in the Apple iStore. It's the clicking at the end of it. So that's where the value occurs. Globally, what manufacturers do is it's the ability to make things. That's very clear. Now, Microsoft, yes, Microsoft makes computers and also makes software and various things. Tesla, I've been to the Tesla factory in the US, and it is a machine that makes the machine. That's the value of Tesla. It's the product, the design, the research and development, and then the data they're getting from every car that comes out of that factory. NVIDIA, all of those, so they're doing the AI chips. There is one Australian company there on the list, or 2. CSL, our second largest company in Australia, they are in blood products globally. They're a global player in it and a fantastic company in Australia. BlueScope Steel is also an Australian company that's building product globally. So it's the ability to make things that sets companies apart as manufacturers. Now, what we're doing at Horizon 2 is we're addressing a market failure in Australia. So everyone thinks that manufacturing is dead in Australia. It's not. It's just very, very niche. It's niche in the areas where we have capabilities. To compete globally, Australia still needs to manufacture, but we generally don't manufacture end goods. We don't make a fighter jet. We don't make submarines yet, but we make a lot of components for those. So Australia is a manufacturer of what we call intermediate supplies in large extent. So what we decided is we went around and had a look at the Australian manufacturers, about 47,000 of them, and there's some common threads into why they're struggling to get scale. And that is, there were three things that came to mind when we spoke to manufacturers. The first one was the cost of energy in Australia. That was a challenge. Still is, hasn't been solved. The second one used to be the cost of labour. They said labour is a barrier to manufacturing in Australia. They don't talk about the cost of labour anymore. They would say, give us labour, we'll just pay for it. What it is access to labour. And my next speaker that's coming up here today is talking about robotics. That's solving part of that. It's solving part of that access to labour by having some of the risky, dirty work, repetitive work that can be done by robots. That is part of solving that labour aspect. And the third thing that is stopping Australian companies becoming successful is what you can do here and what we're doing, and that is providing equity. Equity into Australian manufacturing at whatever is in that equity stack, whether it be just pure equity right down to private debt or other types of equity lending or investment into Australian manufacturers. And we're successfully growing Australian manufacturers to do that. So my first one that I ever invested in was a company that I was called in to do a turnaround. I did the turnaround plan, pitched it to the shareholders. They hated it. They literally hated it. And the guy who called me in, he just said, well, guys, if we keep doing the same thing next year as we did last year, I'll be asking for you guys to put money in or we'll go broke. So what do you think of the turnaround plan? They just went, no, don't believe in it. So the guy who pulled me in for the review, he said to the shareholders, I'll give you $1 a share today for your shares. If you come back tomorrow, it's 85 cents. Next week, 65 cents. After that, you can forget it. I'm not buying your shares. Every person put their hand up in the room. So he then asked me to invest in it as well, which I absolutely did. And we bought that company for $800,000. We sold that in 5 years for $20 million. We sold it to Austral. It's on it's public record on Austral's details. And we were able to do that turnaround and make it more efficient, design a new product, and get it out the door. So that's the sort of process that we're doing to turn around Australian manufacturing. So here's a couple of companies that I haven't invested in, but through my work at AMGC, this was when we were providing government co-investment. So AMGC invested in a company called Alpha HPA. It's now listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, A4N. A4N. That stands for 4 digits of purity of aluminium, 99.99% aluminium. When I first saw that project, I didn't understand it. They were pitching that we're going to sell aluminium, we're going to make aluminium high purity for the diode business, for lasers and various other things, and we'll be selling that aluminium for $16,000 a tonne when aluminium is currently $2,000. I didn't get it. We got an expert to come in and do a review, and she came back and said, if they can break this, it's going to be a big one. It's now listed for $1 billion. That was in 5 years. In 5 years, we gave them $500,000. They're now listed for $1 billion on the ASX. Look it up, A4N. That's one company that I wish I'd have put 500,000 of my own money in that, but it couldn't because it was government money. But that is the sort of investments that can happen with good companies in Australia. The next one's Energy Renaissance. There are battery technology people here today. They will know them. We did an initial funding for Brian to build a gigafactory in Australia, and he's now at the stage of rolling that out, very successful up in the Hunter Valley. And I'll keep moving on. Samsara providing food technology. There are boundless opportunities in Australia. Across those manufacturing areas, there's a couple there, and I'll point them out. A bit hard to see those size of photos, but the one on the top left there is, that one there, is Omni Tanker. Now, they were a fairly standard manufacturer of liquid tankers, the containers that go onto trucks, moving petroleum and everything else, and other caustic chemicals. They then morphed their business into doing wound composite and fibre containers. They're now still very successful in their road transport business and have also set up in the United States, but they're now doing containers for hydrogen and for space. So that's all being done in Australia and now with a landing pad in LA. Another food one there on the bottom left is a company called Harvest Bee. That's manufacturing product that goes into protein for food supplements. So replacing chicken with other types of protein. There are successful Australian companies that we've assisted in getting up and going in Australia. So Alpha HPA, they went from 20 staff. In fact, I saw them when they had 2 staff, 2 university professors from Queensland University, and they showed us their chemical process of producing aluminium. They are now, they've got over 200 staff. They're about to grow further in a partnership with Orica up at Gladstone. The Queensland government gave them $68 million to build a factory in Gladstone. So with that support, that product is now going out the door and successfully producing high purity aluminium for the global market. Energy Renaissance has gone from 5 staff to 50 staff and are looking to address the $36 billion energy storage, large capacity storage for Australia. Samsara, their funding we gave was $569,000 co-investment, and that was at bench scale at that time, 15 staff. They're now building a 20,000 square foot, 20,000 ton facility in Southeast Asia to expand their market into the global manufacture. So as I said, manufacturing is not a sector, manufacturing is a capability. Manufacturing, it's not what you make, but how you make it. Think of your investment side. Think of not just investing in the easy stuff, but also looking at some of the investments that can be available in the Australian market, in defence industries, in food, in technology, in transport. There is we've only got one fund open at the moment, and I've agreed to hold back $500,000 and then we close that fund, and we've already raised $6 million on that recently. It's in the defence and biometric industry. And it is a company that is operating in Dubai, the UAE, United States. We're providing product for Customs and Border Protection in the US. And what is about to happen on the southern border in the US, we're providing biometric identification devices for ICE. Canadian Border Patrol and other law enforcement agencies around the world that need to do a point of presence identification process. So when you're standing in front of someone, trying to identify that person against a national database. And we have approval to verify against the FBI. We can't write to the FBI database, obviously, but we can ping a verification and it will come back and verify that that is the person that they're representing they are through either a shot, a headshot, iris scan, fingerprints, or other types of biometrics. So that's the process we're doing. That's one that's opening. It's going to close in a couple of weeks. And I've now been appointed chairman of that company, and we're building that company globally. So they're the sort of things that is happening in Australian manufacturing. It is exciting. Australia needs to become sovereign capability, have sovereign capability in a lot of areas in defence and other services, as the geopolitical instability is going to play out over the next few years. So I'll be here for the rest of the conference, and I look forward to getting challenged on any of the things I've said and on advanced manufacturing. Happy to do it. Thank you very much.